All right, picking an event. When you're picking an event, Matt, like how long do you like to have an athlete pick their key event? Like how long between them starting a plan and their key event?
I think generally, like the longer we have to train for an event, the better we can do for it. But if we have less than 6 weeks to train for an event, I think we have a hard time getting to our best performance.
That's right. I find optimal around 12 to 16. When you're less than that, you you, you got to juggle like what they've done previously and potentially, some of the mistakes they've made up until the point that's led them to getting a coach. Whereas if you start to go kind of beyond 16 weeks, 20, 24 weeks, the interest can start to wane, and it can become harder to try and, piece everything together in an exciting way to lead them towards the event. And so I find like minimum of 12 and then maximum of kind of 20, with 16 being like the ideal for me anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is going to depend on where you live in the world. So in New Zealand, we can still have a lot of events in the winter, whereas in the States, for example, or Northern Hemisphere, where they're getting a lot of snow, like you're just not competing in the winter at all. So you only have that summer period. And then within that summer period, we might pick one or two key events that we're aiming for. And usually we'll try and separate those out if possible. But sometimes there's just like a national championships, which is a really common goal. We want to be at our peak for the national championships. And then we need to figure out another place to peak so that way we don't kind of just train for 6 months leading into national championships.
So once we've picked our event, we've got to analyze it. And that really becomes integral to putting a good plan in place, because we need to understand the demands of the event in terms of what we need to be prepared for. So just because it's an ultra marathon, that doesn't mean you can prepare exactly the same way. If there's hills, if there's flat, if there's technical terrain, all those need to be incorporated. So you can go through and in whatever event you're doing, you can cover these kind of things. The distance and duration, because they can be very different as well. Like, Matt, there's so many variations in mountain bike courses, especially just across the US alone. East Coast, West Coast courses are different. And just because they're both, 30 or 40K races, the duration can be very different.
Yeah, like actually we really have a good idea of what to expect when we're doing cross-country mountain biking, but only broadly. So by the time we get to the event, we haven't seen the course. We don't know what's going to be on it, how many technical sections, how steep the climbs are going to be, which could affect our training. And a lot of times we just have to guess on a lot of this stuff. And the good news is, like, it doesn't really change our general preparation. But as we get closer to the event, we have to start to have event-specific training sessions. Then we start to find out more information about the event. So we might find, for example, that there's lots of steep climbing, like really steep climbing. So then it's something that we can focus on.
The overall planning in terms of like a distance duration, what I found super helpful for newbie athletes is to look at past results and competitors. Generally, like where we've competed in that same kind of realm and region or nation, depending on where you live. And so some of the same people keep popping up. And what I really like to do when an athlete goes, like, I've never done a multi-stage or multi-day like enduro. I've only ever done like a 3-stage one day. Then we can look and go, oh, well, do you know anyone who's done this event before? Like, yeah, have you raced them? And you can have a look and go, oh, look where they, look how long it took them. And you're similar to them. So that's probably what we can expect, how long each track and each day is going to take you. So I find that like really useful. And then some of the basic ones, like check out the environmental conditions. If you're training in winter for a summer event, you need to incorporate that. And this one's more like for ultras, start time and start line location. It depends where you've booked your Airbnb, because there could be a very big difference between like when you have to wake up, when you have to get in the car, and when you actually have to start the race. And also maybe there's registration, there's organization. Like some of those things, it just pays to have that in your mind before you start to like really get into get into it.
Dr. Matt and I started the Performance Advantage podcast to help runners, riders, and outdoor competitors integrate sports science more effectively into their training and racing.
So over the last few years, Dr. Will and I have covered topics like the lactate threshold, training zones, power meters, and fatigue. Now we're condensing these popular and misunderstood topics into practical courses.
Our courses take our same podcasting style approach to learning and education, and we break it down into bite-sized chunks that you can digest either all at once or as practical little resources to use as and when you need them.
So the biggest difference between our course and any other course you might have taken is that we don't lecture you. It's a conversation between Will and I, and we're explaining complex sports science principles in an easy to understand manner.
Yeah, we also integrate how we use them on the regular. Our courses come with a certificate of completion, as well as a lot of takeaway resources such as training plans, scientific articles, and quizzes that you can do to check your progress along the way.
Our sports science courses are available now. Register on performanceadvantagepodcast.com for immediate access.